will leave that up here. I know we have lots of new faces, so I thought I would go ahead and introduce. We meet here once a month. This is the County Executive Committee for the Loudon County Republican Party. Some of us, not everybody's here, but this is Diane Klein. She's our secretary. Damian Crawford is our vice chair. Fred Kennel is our 7th district representative, and Tammy Gallagher is our treasurer. So we're missing a lot this morning, but let me explain I think some people are confused about what the May primary is. The May Republican primary is for the people that usually gather in this room, the Republican Party of Loudon County. It's not simply putting an R by your name, and I know a lot of people want to run as a Republican because we're Republican County. But the way that primaries work, or the way that the primary is for us to select our candidate. The party, the Loudon County Republican Party, to pick our candidate for the August general election. You can also do a caucus. We can't because we've never done it. The state general assembly changed that this year, but there's some counties that they do by caucus. So the people that meet in this room are the ones that select the Republican candidate, because it's among the people who vote, who are active among the Republican Party, and that's how the caucus works. With a primary, which is what we've historically done, it allows the citizens of Loudon County to vote for the Republican candidate. But make no mistake, it is for the Loudon County Republican Party. The people that meet in this room every month, it's our candidate. And the state executive committee makes bylaws and makes rules by which those candidates can be selected to be put on the ballot. So that's where Brian Hornback comes in. Our SEC members are Sheriff Tim Hutchison and Mayor Terry Frank, and they could not be here. So Brian Hornback graciously offered to come answer questions. So I don't want it to be crazy chaos, but I do want everybody that has a question to be able to ask Brian and get some better guidance. The CEC that you see here, we do not have a role in selecting whether someone is bona fide or not. That falls exclusively with the bylaws and the SEC of the Tennessee GOP. I'll turn it over to Brian.
All right. I am Brian Hornback. I represent State Senate District. I'm the committee man for State Senate District 6, which is the State Senator Becky Massey's district, a district that I've been in since 1973. And I've been on the State Executive Committee since 21, and then was elected by the district in 22. And I am running again in 26. But I've been on the Bylaws Committee now since December of 22. And so I've come down here and hung out a lot in Loudon over the years. I've had a political website since 2004. For 22 years now, and so that's one reason I've come down here and kind of covered politics. My friend Chip Miller and I go back to the late 1980s, 90s, when I worked for a food company peddling candy all over 5 states, and he had a convenience store over here off the interstate. And of course, you know, everybody, I've known all of you for a while, but what we're here to talk about is kind of the process. The process really started, as Melissa Browder and I were talking, it kind of started back in 2012, but really, I talked to the state chairman last night in conversation to make sure he knew I was coming down here, and so we just kind of talked about some scenarios that may come up, because the bylaw changes that really impact everything going forward for May were changed in December, the first Saturday of December of 25. And so just want to kind of give you a little knowledge of how this all got started. And really things got started for the most part in about 2017, 2018. In Knox County, we had a lot of controversy with people who weren't bona fide. That's the new word. Tammy and I were talking, I like the word bona fide because of the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And so I've used it a lot, but now I'm starting to get sick of it. You know, so in 2018, you know, Knox County was, Mayor Burchett was on his way out. We have term limits in Knox County. I think we're about the only state now that does have term limits, Shelby County and us, but I understand Shelby County is going away from term limits. So there was a lot of controversy, and we all got into a room much smaller than this one in 2018, and I still have the videos from it, where people had to get up and say why they believed they were Republican. It infuriated State Senator Richard Briggs, and so he made a law after that if you were in the military and you were overseas and you weren't able to cast your ballot, that you would fall under a different criteria. So if that works, if that impacts anybody after this meeting, get with me, and I'll get you in contact with Senator Briggs, because to quote that exactly, I can't. But let's just talk about kind of where we were in 2018. We started out with, you needed to have voted in 2 out of 4 of the last state and federal primaries. And then we moved that to 3 out of 4. And now with the changes that happened in December of 25, it's about as hard and concrete as you can get. Talking to the state, and so one of the things that we implemented in this rule, in this bylaw, is that the state party is going, as people are picking up petitions, the state party is going to pull those individuals' names and their voting history. Now, let's talk about, why do you only use state and federal primaries and not local primaries? The reason we do that is the most recent example that's closest to us is Roane County. Roane County in the past has typically not ran local partisan elections. Everybody, everybody runs as an independent. If you're a D, you're a D. If you're an R, you're an R. And everybody in Roane County knew who you were, and they knew what you're voting for, right? And there's some discussion that Roane may this year go to partisan elections. But for the most part, when you're looking at a state of Tennessee with 95 counties, you've got to use a criteria that matches for every county. So we don't allow the local party vote to count toward your 3 or 4. So for this year, what we're looking at is we're looking at your August of 24 state primary vote. We're looking at your March of 24, the presidential primary vote. We're looking at your August of 22 vote. And we're looking at your August 20 vote. If you voted in 3 out of 4 of those, then and you pick up a petition from the Election Commission, and you pay your filing fee, then you're gonna be on a Google Doc that has you as green on the Google Doc. Talking to the chairman last night, everybody, just yesterday, the state party finally, petitions started being handed out December 22nd, yeah, about 2 weeks ago, right? So yesterday was the first time that the state party was able to get the list of everybody across the state. We've got 89 counties out of 95, and we've got 2,400 Republican petitions that are on that document. The office staff, which is Ginger Morrow and our state chairman, Scott Golden, will start pulling those voting records probably Monday morning, and they'll start putting them into 3 colors. Green means you're 3 out of 4, you paid your filing fee, you're good to go. Yellow is 3 out of 4, you've not paid your fee, and then the state party will start contacting you to say, when are you gonna pay your fee? And then red is you're not 3 out of 4. And it really don't matter if you paid or it does matter if you paid or not. But if you get taken off the ballot by the state party, then your filing fee will be refunded to you. But with that said, that's kind of where we're at. There is a challenge mechanism. So for 3 out of 4, you're going to be on the, as long as you voted in 3 out of 4, as long as you paid your filing fee, you're a Republican candidate. What's happened in the past before this year is, if we go all the way back to 2018, if we go back to 2022, the party assumed that, and I grew up in East Knox County, which is a lot like Loudon County. Assume's a bad word, and I don't have to explain it to you. But we assumed that everybody that picked up a Republican petition and everybody that got on the ballot as Republican was a Republican. Okay? And so, it's, if you didn't get challenged in 2018 or 2022, then, hey, it's great. You got to run as Republican, you got elected as Republican. But there were some that fell through the cracks. I get tired of hearing about the dry cleaner in Knox County. which is the most infamous name that comes up. Eddie Manis, Eddie ran. Eddie ran as a Republican. He voted in the March primary. So he had run for city mayor, nonpartisan. Then he picked up a petition to run for state rep. And the same month he picked up the petition for state rep, he voted in the Democrat primary. And then he won, and so the state executive committee said not to put him on the ballot. We had a provision in the bylaws then that allowed 3 office holders to say, hey, this guy's legit, he should be a Republican. And so that happened. And so the state chairman put him on the ballot. He won by 99 votes. Then it was challenged. And as a blogger, I listened to that SEC meeting, and he stayed on the ballot. He served for 1 term, and he didn't run again. And now that's seats represented by Elaine Davis. So with that being the primary example, they said, okay, we don't want any more vouching. What those 3 elected officials did was they vouched that he was a good Republican. I talked to 2 of the 3, and they didn't realize that he voted Democrat in the same month that he filed a petition, and bad on them. So we took vouching out. My first meeting in August of 21, vouching was struck from the bylaws. Now the process is that if someone is challenged, if somebody's not voted in 3 out of 4, then it comes to your state executive committee. Now for you, that would be Sheriff Hutchison, former Knox County Sheriff Tim Hutchison, and Anderson County Mayor Terry Frank. So they, along with the state chairman, be 3 people voting, will determine if a waiver is given to somebody. In Knox County, it's more complicated because we have 3 state senators. We have McNally, we have Dr. Briggs, and we have Becky Massey. So it comes down to a vote countywide. If it's a countywide position, it comes down to a majority of 7 people. In a district like a county commission district, which we had 2 years ago, it took 5 of us. It took 4 SEC members and the state chairman. And then if a majority of that 5 say that person is waived, we don't use vouching. If they're waived, then they're allowed on the ballot. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't know I have a process for because I had to make a decision 2 years ago. I have a process for how I arrive at that decision. And I can explain my process, but it doesn't matter to y'all because I don't represent Loudon, right? But it's going to be hard if you're not a 3 out of 4 to be waived, but you still have that possibility. Now, if you got somebody, once they're green, if somebody if 3 people, 3 bona fide people in a district, so let's just take a countywide position. I don't want to get into districts necessarily. Let's take a countywide position. If somebody believes that a candidate that's picked up a petition for a countywide office they got a 3 out of 4, okay? They paid their filing fee, but they're not a good Republican in the fact that, they might have voted for, let's say they voted for a Democrat in that. Let's say they got 3 out of 4 and they voted Democrat in one of those 4, okay? Then 3 bona fide people in the county can't be an SEC member. We exempt ourselves. We also exempt, it can't be 2 people in the same household, so Billy and Carol can't be 2 of the 3. Can file a challenge, and so the state party will look at those 3 people's bona fide voting record. If they're bona fide, and if they set out the reason that this person is not a good Republican, then that would then come to that committee of 3 in Loudon County. So there is an activity portion that is allowed to be challenged. I found out last night by talking to the state chairman that we do have an incident in Bledsoe County, where we have a lady who wants to run as a Republican for county mayor. She's 3 out of 4, and she's a county commissioner. But in the month that she was elected county commissioner, she voted Democrat. So she's got a Democrat vote in her 4, but she's got 3 out of 4 Republican. So now she wants to run for county mayor. And so that's going to be challenged. So she's probably going to be the poster child for the state, I would imagine, depending on what happens one way or the other. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Look, I got active at the age of 16 in Republican politics. 1982, I supported Robin Beard for the U.S. Senate. He was the first guy that went up against liberal Jim Sasser. And as I say everywhere, you know, when I got started in 1982, we were the silent minority. I mean, most of the Knox County Courthouse was full of Democrats. The State House was full of Democrats until about 2010, 2011. My friend Lowell Russell and the Republicans in the State House, they treat the Democrats a heck of a lot better than the Democrats ever treated the Republican minority in the legislature back in the day. But one of the things that's a growing pain of becoming a supermajority party is folks that decide to get politically active, not at 16, but folks that decide to become politically active at 45, 55, or whatever, and they want to get involved. Maybe, you know, they didn't vote when they were, you know, I started, like I say, I was active at 16. My voting record right now is 4 pages. I've never missed an election. I don't have a D anywhere on my voting record. And, but, you know, I'm the exception to the rule. And so, I understand that, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump, a lot of people have Democrat voting records on their voting record. And, you know, that's how you build a supermajority party, is you got people like that. But do you want those people on your representing your party as a candidate? That's kind of the question. So we had to build some parameters in the bylaws to protect the brand. One of the reasons we have filing fees is that we feel like that not only should your voting record reflect that you got skin in the game, but you ought to invest $100 if you're a county commissioner or a school board candidate. You ought to invest $250 if you want to be countywide elected official. And so that's kind of where we've come from. Now, I'll be honest with you, until about 6 years ago, the bylaws for the state party had not changed since 1990 or 91. So it's a constantly evolving process to go through. I'm happy to kind of stop at this point and answer any questions. Just as a reminder, don't mention anybody's name because I am recording it. I've only got the camera on myself because I like myself. Nobody else likes me, but I like myself. So yeah, I don't really want to get into specific names. We can talk about hypotheticals or anything like that. Just so you know, I'm 59 years old. I'll be 60 in August. My wife and I have been married 37 years. We got married in 88. Had our first kid in 90, and then we moved from East Knox County out to, in 1990 I ran for county commission in East Knox County, lost by 112 votes. That guy died in 92. I didn't seek the position because I felt like that the district elected him to a 4-year term, so his son took that position. And my wife and I were moving to West Knoxville anyway. The truth of the matter. And so we moved down to Concord, which is still in the same state Senate district, and ended up with from 1 kid to 3 kids. We've been in Bluegrass community off of North Shore, so I tell Mayor Akins and Buddy Bradshaw, Loudon County Mayor, I can be in the North City quicker than I can be in Knoxville because I can hit Bluegrass to South North Shore to Choteau and Harvey and Martell, and I can be here quicker than I can be in Knoxville. In 2000, I ran for school board, got elected a 4-year term, served 4 years on the school board, served as vice chairman of the school board for 1 year. Came off of that in 2004, and for some reason I became Knox County Party Chairman. I don't know how you do it, Carol, but anyway. I only did it for 1 2-year term, from 2005 to 2007. If you go back and research anything about Knox County Republican Party politics, there was a thing called Black Wednesday in 2007, so it was the most volatile Republican Party that was ever led. Got all my guys reelected, had to replace them, and never wanted to do that again. And then I just stayed active, and then in 21 went on the state executive committee. So you got my bio. I am happy to say that my kids are 35, 31, and almost 30, but I'll still be 59 when my youngest is 30. So, all right, y'all got the skinny on me. So,
Okay, so
throw it at me.
if you signed up for, and you still have a question, does anybody that still has a question that signed up?
Oh, I'm sure there's questions.
You can go ahead, Bob.
Here.
Wherever you want to stand.
Okay. Good morning, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Gross. I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer that moved with my wife Nancy to Loudon County a little over 4 years ago.
Cool. Thanks for your service, by the way.
Thank you very much. 10 of the last 15 years of my service were overseas. I was deployed overseas as a representative and attaché at U.S. embassies representing my agency as a police attaché. I have filed for District 1, Seat B in Loudon County for the County Commission, and I'm very interested in running for that position. I hope that the committee will consider my application and issue a waiver, because although I did sometimes vote from overseas, the votes didn't always get in, and I have some evidence of that. My question basically is, once a person is filed with the county, which I have, when does the SEC decide on whether a person is considered a bona fide Republican, and when are they notified?
Yeah, so we've had some discussion about that, particularly back in December, because it's like, wouldn't it be great? Yeah, thanks. Wouldn't it be great to go ahead and just say, for the SEC members to say, okay, look, we're looking at Mr. Gross's candidacy and go through that process. Unfortunately, we have to deal with the state law, which is that we have to actually, by the rule, it's got to be done right in that window, which is like a 5-day window from filing deadline, which is February 19th, right? February 19th until that, you got till the next Thursday to withdraw. So it's going to have to happen in that window, that 5-day window, just because, we're working with the state election office. I will put you, if you'll be sure and give me your number, I'll be sure and put you in contact with Dr. Briggs, who can talk about the state law, because it sounds like, even though, in whatever service you did, it sounds like you'll fall in that window. And I had a similar meeting like this the Saturday after Christmas. There was 25, y'all beat the Knox County record, I think. But there was 25 people that showed up with Dr. Briggs and Representative Day Wright and myself, and then, of course, the Republican Executive Committee. And he talked about it a little bit, but we didn't have anybody that fit that criteria. So we need to get you in touch with him. But I think, if it's overseas, if it's elections that happened while you're serving overseas, then I think you're going to be okay. But I'll definitely get you in contact with Dr. Briggs and get that statute and send it to you and share his contact with you as well, because I think I would hope that the SEC members would look favorably toward somebody that was serving our country overseas in whatever capacity you were serving. So you should be all right, but I'm not gonna say for sure, but we should be.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tracy.
So how far do the waivers go as far as the decision on whether or not they're going to give you a waiver? If I have both of my representatives give a letter saying that they are willing to give me a waiver, those 2 plus 3 others are gonna be the ones that decide whether or not I would be able to.
So it's only going to be decided among 3 people, which is Sheriff Hutchison, Mayor Frank, and Scott Golden. So it's, if you can get a hold of Sheriff Hutchison and Mayor Frank and they say, you know, what's gonna happen is this Google document's gonna be shared. The Google document's gonna be, from what Chairman Golden told me last night, it's gonna be a county-wide document, okay? So Mayor Frank, Sheriff Hutchison, myself, my counterpart Jane Chedister, Karen Brown, and Kent Morrell will all have access to the Knox County Google document. Sheriff Hutchison and Mayor Frank will have access to the Knox County Google Doc, they'll have access to the Anderson County Google Doc, and the Loudon County Google Doc. We still don't know because I would anticipate by the end of next week, we should be able to have access to that Google Doc. But, you know, you can try to get a hold of either one of them. Sheriff Hutchison, anyway. Sheriff Hutchison doesn't work a real job, and I mean, today, he's retired. And I had to look at the camera because I know he'll probably watch this and I'll probably get grief, but he and I have been friends since 1990. But he's a little more open during the day than Mayor Frank would be. So you might be able to get a hold of him easier than you would Mayor Frank. But obviously, if the two of them decide to do a waiver, then, you know, you should be okay. I mean, I don't think, the bad thing Scott Golden's got to do is, so there's 33 state senate districts across the state. There's a man and a woman from each state senate district. That's 66 of us. So we hire one person, that's Scott Golden. So he's gonna have to be the tiebreaker, for his employers, you know. I told him yesterday, I'm like, you know, when you got this job in like 2016, you didn't realize that, you know, you're gonna have to potentially be making some of your bosses mad, but, you know, he's good for the process. But I mean, if you get those two, I'll be honest with you, we had a situation 2 years ago that I briefly mentioned in my introduction, and Jane and I talked to the individual. The individual had run for public office before in a nonpartisan capacity, and he was on the Republican ticket. The chairman at the time put together 5 Republicans that we ran as Republicans for city council elections. And so this guy stood underneath the Knox County Republican Party banner, and so he was challenged for a county commission position. Jane and I met with him individually. We also met with the person that led the challenge, and you know, we explained what our position was. So technically, he got a provisional waiver verbally from us, but then when it got down to it, of all his precincts, one precinct, half of them was represented by the Kent and Karen, Dr. Briggs's committee man and woman. And so we had to do a formal vote, and we waived him. We've lost that commission seat for 4 years because it's one of those purple districts that has a whole lot of Democrat. Well, it's probably a 55, probably I don't know. It's like almost a 50-50 district. So we've lost the school board and the county commission seat there in Knox County. But you know, we felt like the guy started a year before. He had raised a lot of money, had a lot of Republican support, and he had also ran under the Republican banner. That was my reason, and I'm the only one that gets criticized for him being on the ballot, even though there was at least 3 other votes besides me. But yeah, so we granted kind of a provisional waiver, and so you know, if you can make your case to Sheriff Hutchison, Mayor Frank, and they're willing to do it. Same thing with Mr. Gross. I mean, you know, he's a little bit different in the fact that, you know,
He's got military service.
Right.
I get that.
Right.
But from what I have heard in different places, different people, is that basically if you become challenged, then you would need that letter, you know, to be wavered.
Right, yeah.
But what I'm gathering from you is that if you're already on the yellow or the red, or basically the red side, then you would absolutely have to have that waiver.
Because what he's saying is that
Does
this
that
is new,
happen?
that this just.
So the yellow really is only that you haven't paid your filing fee.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the likelihood that you're gonna, you know, when you're reminded that, hey, you haven't paid your filing fee, I would suspect that 99.9% of people are gonna pay their filing fee. So they're gonna go from green to yellow. I mean, they're gonna go from yellow to green. Red is where you definitely gonna have to have a waiver. If you're not 3 out of 4, you're gonna have to have a waiver. So, you know, if you missed 1, if you missed 2, you know, we've had a situation coming up into this May election in Knox County where, you know, we had a lot of people wanting to run for sheriff because sheriff's term limited. So we had 4 candidates. And unfortunately, one of them was our chief deputy that passed away, complications from pneumonia and flu B. But we had a guy that wanted to run, he was a 0 of 4. You know, and I'm like, okay, I'll talk to him, but, you know, I mean, how do you explain 0 out of 4? And so that person has since dropped out of the race, and, you know, his campaign manager wrote an editorial to the paper and criticized the new rule, which is not a new rule, but it is what it is. But I mean, you just got to be able to explain why you missed those votes. And, you know, if you're not politically connected or politically active like I am, you know, I'm sure it's easy to miss an election. I guess. I doubt Van Shaver's ever missed an election. Have you, Van? No. Melissa, have you ever missed one? Oh wait, no. Chip. Chip, have you met? You probably, yeah. But you know, Chip's dad served for a number of years. I mean, so you know, if you're not, I mean, I get it if you missed one, but you just got to be able to explain it in order to be a candidate.
Brian?
Yep.
One of the things, going back to try to clarify what you said earlier, where this discussion is going. If you don't have the 3 out of 4, 1, 2, whatever, 0, I thought I understood what you were saying was that's almost an automatic disqualification. If you have 3 out of 4, that's when you could still be challenged because of previous votes or something to that effect, and would possibly receive a waiver. Will any waivers be granted to anybody that's less than 3 out of 4? Is short of Mr. Gross's situation, just an individual citizen that just has chosen not to vote. Can you even get a waiver if you're less than 3 or 4?
I'm gonna be honest in the fact that I can't speak for the 2 folks who represent Loudon County, but I think it's gonna be very, very hard to get a waiver if you're not 3 out of 4. You're gonna have to explain it. I'll give you an example of, this is the same process that, I came to y'all's reorganization. Y'all's reorganization a little more flawless than ours in Knox County. But we had a gentleman, you've probably seen him in the news if you watch Knoxville TV or read that rag called the Daily Paper. His name's Richard Bean, the Richard Bean Juvenile Center, right? Gentleman's wife served for 20 plus years as our court clerk. He showed up at a convention and he was not 3 or 4, he was 2 or 4. Well, we all knew why he missed an election. The man was laying over at Park West Hospital with sepsis. There's not very many people that when they're in the hospital for sepsis, they get up and walk out. This guy got up and walked out, and so we wavered him in for the convention. One of our SCC members didn't vote for him to be wavered, but that's okay. I mean, the rule's a rule, and that was their reason for not wavering him. But yeah, so I mean, that person is going to have a pretty valid reason in my mind that they're not 3 out of 4.
Aside from the 3 out of 4, would the previous voting history be considered? I mean, if you have a candidate that's just not voted any, or possibly has multiple Ds in their previous history behind the 3 out of 4, is that kind of information also included in those kind of discussions? Well,
what's going to be that's where we would fall into that challenge by the 3 people, the 3 individual registered voters who are bona fide. You know, if you know that somebody, you know, if you know somebody's been active in Democrat politics before the 3 out of 4, you know, if they had a yard sign for a Democrat in their yard, you know, that's where that challenge would come in, and that's where that challenge would be presented to the SEC, and that's where that waiver would happen. So it's really a 2-tier process. Really, the first hurdle is gonna be the 3 out of 4. If you're not 3 out of 4, you're gonna have to get over that hurdle first.
And also,
Then,
they have to have filed it. Like, we have a lot
Right.
that have not turned theirs in.
Right.
So the SEC can't determine your status if you've not already turned it in. You've got to turn your petition in.
and if you're one of those that you know that you're 3 out of 4, I definitely would reach out to your SEC members and talk to them about it, and kind of get at least the temperature of the water. Before this process of the state party pulling voting histories in Knox County, when I see people are picking up petitions, I go ahead and get their voting record from the election commission, by email. And so I've always got a book that's got everybody's. So I'm gonna be honest with you. In 22, I'm the umpire. I'm the referee. So I got a book, and I know what these voting records are, but I ain't talking to nobody about it because it's not up to me to call Pat Hunter and say, Pat, this person needs to be challenged, because unless you're part of the NCAA basketball problem that's going on right now, that ain't how referees and umpires are supposed to work. So yeah, I mean, we got a school board member right now in Knox County that didn't qualify, but nobody challenged him, so he went on. He won the primary and he won the general, and so.
So that's a question. If we have an elected official that doesn't have the 3 out of 4, is there an
Yeah,
exemption?
well, that's where it gets a little more complicated. So that's where the conversation with Scott Golden now happens. If you're an elected official, and you're not 3 out of 4, the complication is that Scott Golden has to get a hold of Mark Goins this coming week, because there's something called the Skullduggery Act of 1992. Now, I tried to use my AI sources, and when you use the Skullduggery Act of 1992 in the state of Tennessee, you don't get the statute, right? But Scott told me last night that there was a situation in Shelby County back in the early 90s. If you'll remember, those of you that have been here for a while will remember in the late 90s, in the late 80s and early 90s, we had a lot of political corruption. And we had a situation that Scott was talking about in Shelby County, where a guy and his buddy guy was the incumbent. He and his buddy both qualify to run for office. And after the filing deadline and maybe before the withdrawal, the incumbent withdrew. And so, he just wanted his buddy to be the party nominee. Okay? And so the legislature in 92, according to the state chairman, passed a law that said you can't do that. You've got to give another window of opportunity. And your election administrator is shaking her head. But anyway, you've got to give another opportunity to open up the window for people to qualify to run. So I cannot answer what will or won't happen if an incumbent doesn't meet the 3 out of 4, because we're still looking into that, because I'm sure there's other cases out there.
Because I was just thinking, if it works like you said, we're 3 out of 4, well, this person is going to pop up in the red.
Okay, right.
So, I mean, if it's just that cut and dry, so. Fred?
Brian, the
Yes, sir.
district that I represent has most people who've been transplanted in here. And they have 3 out of 4, but they don't have 3 out of 4 in this state. And I noticed in the bylaws, it does say that you can move from state to state and county to county. It doesn't have to be all from the same residence. How does the state level, on your green, yellow, red example, how can they pull those records from the other state? Doesn't the applicant have to prove that to you?
The burden of proof is on the applicant, right? So if and we go back to 22 over in Blount County, we had a gentleman. There was no man that wanted to serve as state executive committee man. Okay, so nobody qualified to be on the ballot, so it was just left open. But there was a gentleman that had ran as a write-in candidate, got 300 votes across the district, which is Monroe, Polk, Bradley, Blunt. And he wanted to be seated. The SEC, after some discussion in December of 22, did not seat him, and we appointed someone. And then they had to run for re-election in 24, and then he got beat by Blount County. But since all that kind of came up, because in that Zoom call with the SEC, the guy said, well, I voted local elections. Well, that don't count. And then he talked about his Texas and his California voting record. Well, at that point, the bylaws did not allow for us to consider his Texas and California voting record. Now we do allow you to bring your voting record to us. And as long as you show that you voted in the Republican primaries, then that can be considered in the state bylaws.
Well, that kind of contradicts what your bylaws say, but on the Article 3 section when it starts, it has a footnote down at the bottom. That's footnote number 1. It says, pursuant to the minutes from the December 3rd, 2011 SEC meeting, the phrase referencing the last 3 Republican primaries in his county of residence was approved with the understanding this would not require one to have voted in 3 primaries in the same residence. This allows for individuals to have moved from county to county and state to state. So since 2011, you've recognized that, not since 22.
Okay.
But it still stands, if they will,
Right.
they will consider an out-of-state.
But it would be up to that person to get us the record
Okay.
from that state, and then we will consider it. I know since about 24, we've made it kind of known that we will consider an out-of-state record, but it's up to you to get the record, because we had a situation in Knox County in 22 where I did seek someone's out-of-state voting record, and it's a little more complicated for me to get somebody's voting record than for somebody to get their own voting record. It can be done, but you gotta be pretty. You gotta be pretty determined and fight to get it. But it can be.
We
done.
have one that does have his, he gave it to
Okay.
me, so he's got it,
Yeah.
and can get it to, I mean, I don't know how to get it to Terry Frank and Sheriff Hutchison, but we've got it.
All right.
Are they, the person who does qualify that way, are they on the green, yellow, or red tab if they've paid the
They're
fees?
probably going to show up on the red, but knowing that they're going to be able to move to the green,
So it has to be
because all we're looking at, all that Ginger and Scott are really looking at is your state voting record, because that's all they can pull. But they're going to be in the red. But if this person or people if they've got their out-of-state voting record and it can prove that they voted Republican, then it should be an easy switch up to green.
Any other questions?
Going back to the incumbent question a little bit ago, for instance, hypothetically, you have an incumbent that's been in office longer than your bylaws have been in place on this particular matter. How would you address it that way? I mean, obviously, they ran a Republican sometime in history. They are a Republican in office, so I don't know how that would factor.
Yeah, I don't know. Scott and Mark Dolan are going to have to talk about that one. See how that plays out in state law, and then ultimately it's going to be up to Sheriff Hutchison and Mayor Frank. I would, the good. If I could put some kind of good to this, for 100 years. Being on the state executive committee really was just, you get to go to this Republican convention if you wanted to. You could, you get to meet all these people. But now, I mean, now we're a supermajority party. I mean, I would encourage any man, any woman that would like to endure this trauma and this PTSD to go ahead and pick up a petition and turn it in before March the 10th. Especially if you're 3 out of 4. But, so the SEC used to be just, used to be a position where, also the thing about the SEC is it doesn't pay anything. Of course, I know that most counties don't pay much if you're a county commissioner or school board member either, but, you get to pay $100 a year to join the Capitol Club, and you got to pay your own way to the meetings and find your way back. But
Sounds like a fun job.
yeah, and then you get invited to a county that's just west of you. It's all good. You know.
Thank you, by the way.
Yes,
Oh,
we
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Well, I'll just, you know, as we start to close this out, I'll just say this. Right out of high school, I went to work at Walgreens on Cumberland Avenue, which, although they've torn down most of Cumberland Avenue, it's still there. And Senator Baker came in to purchase an alarm clock at Walgreens because Miss Joy had gone to Fort Sanders Hospital, and when he left Huntsville, he forgot his alarm clock. And he came in. It's about 4 weeks before Senator Baker became Ronald Reagan's chief of staff. And of course, I was enamored. Here I am working the late shift. I was, you know, fresh out of high school. And there's the senator. And I walked up to him. I said, you know, Senator, I know you're just here for an alarm, because at that time, alarm clocks were up at the photo counter. And I said, Senator Baker, I said, I just want to ask you, you know, I've been active since I was, for the last several years, you know, what I do. And he said, well, I'll be honest with you, Brian. He goes, you can't get a blood transfusion for it. He said, so you just buckle up and enjoy the ride. And so, you know, that's kind of thing. I mean, I don't play golf because I don't have the attention span to stay on a golf course for 4 hours in the heat, the wind, and the rain, and the cold. And it costs quite a bit of money to play golf, and I don't gamble. So, you know, I guess politics is my vice, I guess.
Let me also say, if you're needing to reach out to Sheriff Hutchison or to Mayor Terry Frank, their email is on the Tennessee GOP. It's TennesseeTNGOP.org. And under there, it lists each SEC member and their email address.
It used to list our phone numbers until the first Trump election, and the people that served on the Electoral College got thousands and thousands of threatening emails and phone calls. I got the honor to be an alternate elector this year, and I'll be honest, it's pretty cool to be sitting in the state capitol. And you know, I was an alternate, so my signature didn't go. But you know, I'll be honest with you, you know, just sitting there knowing that you're in the room where it happened was kind of cool. And then, but yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting process. But yeah, I know Sheriff Hutchison's email address is sheriffhut@gmail, I think. Mayor Frank's.
Terry Frank.
Yeah, I think Mayor Frank is Lee and Terry Frank. It may be MS. I don't remember, something like that. But yeah, it's her husband and her email.
I think I've got it, because I also noticed that, you know, my name and phone number is listed on the GOP website.
Is it? I mean, you can find me. I mean, my blog for 20 plus years was brianhornback.com. Brian with an I, Hornback, ABACK. My phone number is on that website. It'll redirect you from Brian Hornback, but it's moved to a different URL, which is a lot longer to say. But I didn't realize when I created a blog, August 9th of 2004, that it would end up having the readership that it has. And so, you know, in hindsight, it probably wasn't a good idea to use my name. But
So Terry Frank's is Lee, Lee, and Terry Frank @mac.com.
MAC.
And it is Sheriff Hutt, HUT, @gmail.com.
Yes,
And then there's
Pat.
also, if you can't, Ginger Morrow, her email is listed there. I don't have it, but Ginger Morrow, she's very responsive.
That's going to be G Morrow, I think. Well,
Is it the same
It's
as?
Ginger at.
is
Is
it
it
Ginger at TN? What's weird is we get the state party's website gets hacked on a regular basis, and we get a lot of spam messages about how our treasurer is unable to write a check, and Scott is in desperate need of gift cards. And so Ginger's email address, I think, is a .com, but Scott's has had to go to a .org because of a hack. Pat, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me about our anti-annexation days. That was quite fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, in Knoxville, for those of you that might have followed our city of Knoxville trying to raise the sales tax, it impacted. I was my wife and I, 6 months after we got married, we lived in the city, but I've never lived in the city other than that time. But those of us in the county were pretty adamant about not raising the sales tax because, during the era of Mayor Ash, there was so much annexation that only 29% of the retail operation in Knox County is actually in the county. The rest of it's in the city because of the annexations, but.
Question, this is a what-if scenario, mostly because it has to do with the 2022 election.
Okay.
I remember because I was a candidate, but many of the candidates were not, many of them were not, didn't qualify.
Right.
3 out of 4. The ones that weren't challenged stayed on the ballot. The ones that were challenged still stayed on the ballot, regardless that they were not 3 out of 4 and voted Democrat. And I think what I found a little bit bothersome is that getting an answer from the SEC about the status of the challenge, has that changed any? When do you find out whether that person stays on the ballot or not? And the other question is, if somebody turns in their petition, is there any way that you can get the SEC to determine on the waiver whether they're going to be accepted or not? Because if you're thinking about running independent, you have to turn in your petition at the same time
Right.
as a Republican or Democrat.
Right. Yeah, no, unfortunately, because of the state law for, with what the election commission has to follow, you know, the actual so I'm gonna tell you that if you're not in the green, if you're in the yellow, you're gonna get a friendly phone call going, hey, we need you to pay your filing fee. All right? But if you're in the red, you're pretty much almost guaranteed that you're gonna be put on the list. So Scott Golden is the one, once everything's done within that 5-day window, you know, Scott Golden sent a letter saying this person will not be on the Republican ballot. So, you know, at that point, I mean.
But I also want to point out that since 22, it was December 24 when you all did the big bylaws change. And that's when they really, I guess, really more concreted this bona fide.
Right.
That's what, and I think it was because of the 22.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but
There's no doubt that because of 18 went pretty smooth, but it was because of the 22. And you know, I'll be honest with you. I mean, a lot of people have told me. So there's a couple of things here, and I don't want to open up any more issues because we've already gone 52 minutes. But you know what? Everybody would tell me people can still have a 3 out of 4 and be Democrats, and I'm like, I don't see that. But now that we have the lady out of Bledsoe County that I found out about last night, I mean, she was elected county commissioner and voted Democrat. So she didn't even vote for herself.
In Loudon County, if you want to vote for anybody in the history for the last a lot of years, if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever you are, if you want to have a voice in an election, you have to vote Republican.
Right.
Many Democrats will cross over in the Republican primary to vote in R, including in August. I mean, again, it's the same way in Loudon County. So that would allow for a lot of times to have Democrats showing up as R's in their voting record when they actually are not R's.
No, absolutely. I mean, in 2022, there were some Democrats in Knox County, you know, that went on their Facebook and said, I pulled a Republican ballot, you know, charge me. You know, and then, you know, obviously we got some Republicans that might do the same thing. But, you know, here's the thing. If you're a Democrat, I mean, back in the day, I would have never considered voting Democrat. But, you know, back in 1984, when I registered to vote, I mean, we had maybe, you know, 1 or 2 Republicans in the courthouse. And I mean, so it would have been easy for Republicans to vote Democrat back in 84, 86, 88, right? But since 2014, you know, we've not elected a county-wide Democrat in Knox County. The two last Democrat judges got voted out in 14, and then you know, and so I mean, the only thing we're losing in Knox County is right now the fourth district is a very purple district, and you know we've got the school board race up this year. We got to find a Republican to run there, but
also county primaries don't count.
Right, county primaries don't count.
So you're saying if you are at this day, right today,
Right.
on this day, if you're not 3 out of 4, you got some work to do.
You got some work,
Between now and,
you got some phone calls to make to Sheriff Hutchison and Mayor Frank to,
not us.
not
Not
And
this.
again, that's after you turn in your petition.
here's
You
the
have to
thing.
get the petition
Right,
turned in
I mean,
before you start that
Right,
process.
here's the thing, you can have a petition right now. If you know that you're not 3 out of 4, if you know that you.
And does that include, don't matter who you are?
Right, no
Whether
matter.
you're elected official,
Right.
not elected official, garbage man or whatever.
So
You're all equally, right? Is that what you're saying?
for the most part, now on the elected official thing,
It's to be determined.
that's too, because,
But you still gotta go.
I've got
If
video.
somebody can test you.
Right.
You're still gonna have to prove.
Right.
Period.
So
right?
there could be an exception to the elected official that's been elected Republican only because of the Skullduggery Act of 1992. Because I have a recording, I record a lot of crap, but anyway, I have a recording from while Eddie Manis, where one of our former Republican chairmen in Knox County said, because he got elected Republican, he's bona fide. Well, there's got to be a way to take that off, because I mean, if he starts voting Democrat from here on out, he shouldn't be considered bona fide just because he served 2 years in the legislature as a Republican. But we still got to make sure that meshes with state law, Tammy. So that one is the one yet to be determined. I'll stay on the.
But it's still gonna have to come from somebody higher
Right.
up,
Yes.
a yes or no.
Yes.
Not us.
It's
And I
going
know-
to have to come from Frank and Hutchison and Scott Golden.
And I know where this comes from, but you all have changed the bylaws since 22.
We've changed them a lot, haven't
But
we?
in 22, the CEC, I was a 6th district rep, I was not on the board. In 22, we wrote letters to vouch for some people who did not have the 3 out of 4. So that's where this has come from. It has changed since then. There's
Yeah.
gonna be no letters coming from the CEC. This is cut and dry, 3 out of 4 has to go to the SEC.
And there was provisions, probably
Back
even, right. There was provisions in 22 where the CEC could vouch, waive, whatever. We don't like vouch. I'm sure in another couple of years we're not going to like the word waive, so we're going to go find another word to use. But yeah, it's so. But yeah, CEC was allowed to have it.
That's
Was
no
what?
more.
But that's no more.
That's a thing of the past, that's gone.
Just one more question.
Yes, Pat.
If someone is in that red category, but they feel that pretty passionate about running for local office, what kind of information do you think would be helpful, or what kind of information should they turn in order to be considered in that waiver?
I mean, I think they should be able to, if they've been involved in other political races, they should talk to those people that they helped get elected and see if those people would say, yeah, Chip Miller, put up 300 yard signs, or get Chip to say, Billy Pickle, what. I would say that would be the first place I'd start. I'd think about the races I'd worked in before and see if I could get those people to say that, yeah, this person did this, this, and this. Granted, you're just making your case. I mean, I'd do the same thing as if I was facing a lawsuit. I'd get all the good information I could find on myself to give to my lawyer to take and make my case to the judge, right? And so that's what I would do.
And if they had a military background?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, military is going to be the big thing. I didn't even realize until the Saturday after Christmas this year, I guess that was the 27th, I didn't even realize until Dr. Briggs started talking about it that he actually passed a law that said that, if you're overseas and your ballot didn't come in, Dr. Briggs has got pretty passionate about it. And I wish I could have recorded that meeting because he was talking about one of the candidates ran for Congress in 2018 at that meeting at the Hampton Inn. The gentleman said, well, I was overseas and I cast my ballot, but it didn't make it in time. And the SEC member said, well, you should have made sure it made it on time. Why'd you miss the next one? He said, well, I was in Walter Reed Hospital having my foot removed. You know, Dr. Briggs pretty much lost it that day.
I did.
And so he still says that that's probably the one situation that if he could have controlled himself, he wish he had. But you know, he was pretty emphatic about it, and he went to the legislature and changed it. So you know, that's and I think that's a valid reason. I mean, since COVID, the mail service just. I mean, my day job is working for I worked 40 years in grocery sales, and since October 22, I work for the Knox County Trustee now, and this year's been better, but the last 3 years, the mail service has sucked. So if you're overseas trying to get your ballot over here to the election commission, you know, it's just a wing and a prayer. It's just a wing and a prayer. Thank you. All right, I'll stick around as long as anybody else is here.